on the line, you can't fold and you can't bend. Y'all be playing it safe and I be going for the win. Remember back when they was doubting on the kid. Now they tuned in cause my game too legit.
Yo, what's going on, Headliner Nation? Kyle back with the Fantasy Headliners. Today we're diving into some of the riskiest players at the quarterback position. So whether you're someone who's risk adverse, you don't want the risky guys on your team, or you like to risk it for the biscuit, it doesn't matter. We're going to cover all of the quarterbacks for you here today. The top 24 quarterbacks based on ADP. I've already done the running backs. You can find that video from a couple of days, or excuse me, the wide receivers. I did that video a couple of days ago. And then we got running backs and tight ends coming up next. But before I jump into the video, I got to remind everybody, if you're looking for a way to support the channel and become a part of our exclusive Headliner Nation, you can do that over on Patreon. Down in the description of this video is a link for Patreon. You can go down there, click on the link. It's going to take you over there. Hop into our MVP tier if you're willing and able to right now. You get a free draft guide. Okay, so number one, you can get a free draft guide. Number two, exclusive content that you're not going to be able to find on this channel. It's exclusive articles, exclusive videos, and an exclusive podcast outside of all of our free content. Supporter leagues over there, and we've got an awesome Discord channel for our MVP Patreons. I'm in there. Jake's in there. Everybody from the Headliner crew is in there. Other MVP members are on there. Listen, this is one of the most in-depth Discord channels that you're going to find, with chats for everything from our cards that we do, to fantasy football, to hockey, to baseball, to everything. Gaming in there. Ladies and gentlemen, you don't want to miss out on that. If you're a part of Discord, let them know down in the comments below, exclusive Headliner Nation, how much fun they may or may not be missing out on. But like I said, we got to talk about risky quarterbacks tonight. And we're going to be doing the same exact thing that we did in my wide receiver video. I've got myself a spreadsheet here that we're going to dive into and take a little bit of a look at. And that's going to give you maybe a little bit of a clue as to what you need to be looking for when it comes to some of those quarterbacks that may have some up and down performances throughout the year. But first, how did we get here? Let's take a quick look at that, because obviously I got to share with you all how we ended up getting to this point in the season. So first and foremost, what is risk score? So I went through and kind of created this risk score that tells us how risky a player may be. Now, I have to say this in every single video though. It's not an end-all be-all, okay? Even though we have this risk score here, we still have to take it for what it's worth. That it is information that will help us to make a decision. It is not going to make the decision for us. There are other things that you are going to have to take into account to make sure that we understand what exactly the data may or may not be telling us. So just again, use this score to help you make a decision. And then at that point, we will be able to come to a conclusion on guys that we may, or guys that we should be, or maybe shouldn't be drafting. So how did we go about doing this? Well, I went through and I took where quarterbacks finished, the top 24 quarterbacks based on their current ADP. So last year, if you had a game inside the top 6 quarterbacks, you got 1 point for every game inside the top 6. Games that were inside the top 12 quarterbacks, you got 2 points for every game. For games where you finished outside the top 12, I gave you 4 points. And then what did we do? Went through and added up all of the points. Now, when I did that, it was far too skewed, right? Because a guy like Tua, who really only appeared in 10 games last year, is obviously going to have less points than, like a Baker Mayfield who was in 16 games. Or Dak, who was only in 5, is going to have far less games, therefore a far lower score than what Lamar Jackson would have. So then we went in and we took the total points, added up, we divided it by amount of games played. The lower the score that you received, the less risk you would have. So let's go ahead and take a look at that information now. And we'll go ahead and just sort it here real quick. And again, In my last wide receiver video, I apologize. Apparently, I messed up the sorting at one point in time because some of the numbers didn't add up. I went through, I double-checked all these. They should be good to begin with. Hopefully, the sorting doesn't mess up again. But right now, we're sorted by ADP. So Patrick Mahomes leads the way going at the beginning of the third round. Josh Allen is the quarterback 2 off the board, going at the end of the third at 3.10. And then down we go, Kyler Murray, Lamar Jackson, Dak Prescott, Herbert, Wilson, Rodgers, Brady, Hurts. Hurts right now going in the early 7th round. Really caught me off guard is the quarterback 10. Now, one thing I am going to make mention of right now with Jalen Hurts is I put NAs in here for all of him. So Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, Trey Lance. They didn't play last year, right? They didn't play. They don't get scores. I can't give them one, but I included them in here anyway because I wanted you to see the top 24 quarterbacks. Jalen Hurts, I left NAs in because the problem that occurred with Jalen Hurts is that he appeared in some games, but he didn't do anything in those games. So even though he's credited with playing in some of these games where he didn't do anything, where maybe he stepped out wide at one point, or maybe he only took a couple of handoffs at quarterback or a couple of snaps at quarterback and handed it off, it would have made Jalen Hurts' numbers look absolutely terrible. And I didn't want that to happen, okay? We all know that I'm not the biggest Jalen Hurts truther in the world, but I did not purposely want to skew any statistics to make him look worse. So I just went ahead and threw NA in here. As it comes to, I mean, as we talk about it, he ended up being pretty risky, and I'll kind of tell you how I went about figuring it out. But we'll talk about that here in a minute. So that's where we currently stand with the ADP and where guys are at right now in that ADP. Again, top 24 quarterbacks. So let's take a look at how many players finished inside the top 6. So we are going to sort our columns here by row D. Let's sort it out. I went the wrong direction. Hold on a second. Sort range. Column D. We're going backwards, ladies and gentlemen. Boom. There we go. So NA is going to show up at the top first. But Josh Allen, Kyler Murray, and Aaron Rodgers led the way last season with 8 top 6 finishes. Patrick Mahomes came in at 7, right behind those two. And then Lamar Jackson, Ryan Tannehill, and Deshaun Watson right after that. Looking at the lower end, Daniel Jones didn't have any, which probably doesn't surprise a whole lot of you. Ben Roethlisberger only had 1. Ben Roethlisberger did end up having 4 games within the top 12, but he only had 1 game last season where he finished inside the top 6 quarterbacks. A guy like Matt Ryan, who, when you look at that offense, they were throwing. It's interesting to see he had a top 6 score 3 times, which was tied for Dak, who only played 5 games last year. But Baker Mayfield had just as many. Those are 2 completely different offenses, right? Baker Mayfield, run-first offense, goes through Nick Chubb. That's what that game plan is for. And then you've got the Atlanta Falcons. It runs through Matt Ryan, the passing game. Defense wasn't great last year. They finished right there, right next to each other. Now, Baker Mayfield ended up finishing outside the top 12 more than Matt Ryan did, but to see them both finish in that area was very interesting to see. Let's go ahead and look at the top 12. So how many players did we have finish inside the top 12? So I'm going number 7 to 12 on this one. Number 7 to 12. So no, not total. Not like I'm not giving you double points because you were in the top 6, which means you were in the top 12. No, from number 7 to number 12 is where that comes into play. So we're going to go to column E there. We're going to sort this bad boy out again. Kirk Cousins led the way with 6 games ranked inside the top 12 where he did not finish as a QB or a top 6 quarterback. Aaron Rodgers came in next with 5, tied with Watson. Justin Herbert comes in with 5 there as well. Next on the board, Russell Wilson, Tom Brady, Matthew Stafford, Ben Roethlisberger. We go all the way down here, and it was really interesting to see with Joe Burrow, even with how much they were throwing it last year, there was a couple of weeks where he had really, really good weeks, but so did a lot of other quarterbacks, so it pushed him further down. So that's why you see only 1, 1, and 8 there. And that other column, the other column here is games in which quarterbacks finished outside the top 12. So let's take a look and see of the top 24 quarterbacks currently based on ADP, how many of them finished outside the top 12. Daniel Jones, Baker Mayfield led the way with 12. Now, again, that's interesting with Mayfield because we saw him at number 3 tied with Matt Ryan for top 6 performances, but then he had 12 where he was outside the top 12. Baker Mayfield, for me, even though he's a guy where we've clearly established he's not Patrick Mahomes, he's not Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, he's not going to be that guy. Yeah, maybe we overvalued him a couple of years ago, but I think at this point, now we know who Baker Mayfield is. Baker Mayfield is a guy who runs an offense that goes through Nick Chubb in the running game, and that's okay. There is absolutely nothing wrong with that, but he might be a pretty decent QB2. For those of you out there in Superflex leagues or 2 quarterback leagues, Baker Mayfield's going in the 11th round right now. When you change that to kind of fluctuate for Superflex and 2 QB, probably looking at like the 8th or the 9th round, that's no problem as your quarterback too. He's probably going to be a guy that's not going to make a ton of mistakes this year, that won't get you a ton of points, but he's going to finish kind of in that QB2 range for you, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Matthew Stafford with 11, playing injured last year, missing Kenny Galladay, offensive line wasn't great. All those things combined there definitely was not something that we wanted to see. So go ahead and sort this back down. We're going to go back to the ADP here. Let's go ahead and sort that range. A, boom, knock it in there. No, I went the wrong way again. Hold on a second. We got to select our range. My bad on that, ladies and gentlemen. Didn't mean to go the wrong way. Again, sort range, column A to Z. There we go. Much better. Let's unhide these columns now. And we are going to get a better idea of what our scores look like. Because now I am going to go ahead and sort these out by risk score. We're going to go to sort range. We are going to go to column H at the very end. We want the lowest score first. And there we go. Last year, Aaron Rodgers came in with a 1.87. He ended up being the safest quarterback in the league last season. Dak Prescott, again, very little to go off of last season. But what we know going into this season is he's going to be throwing the ball an awful lot again, right? So this 2.2 risk score here kind of adds up, even with the small sample size last year, because 3 finishes inside the top 6, 2 of them outside the top 12. Just the volume alone is going to help propel him. Kyler Murray at 2.25. A lot of you might be, what? How? Listen, do not let recency bias get you because you saw him struggle at the end of the year. A majority of these 8 top 6 performances came at the beginning of the year when he was an MVP candidate and he wasn't hurt. As soon as he went down with his shoulder injury, things started to drop off a little bit. We probably would have saw this number go down to probably a 4. There is a really, really good chance that if Kyler Murray would have finished healthy last season, that he may have been the safest quarterback in all of football last year. Deshaun Watson was very, very safe. Now, the one problem right now is we don't know if he's going to play this year, and if he does, where is it going to be? Is it going to be in Houston? Is it going to be elsewhere? A lot of legal trouble right now that we haven't heard a whole lot about. So it's kind of hard to discuss what we're going to see from Deshaun Watson this year. If for some reason he ends up playing, though, keep this in mind. And it's probably going to be one of the same things again this year. That defense is going to be awful. They're going to be throwing the ball a lot. He's going in the 12th round right now. Superflex 2 quarterback leagues, you can take a shot at him if you've already got a couple of quarterbacks and just see what ends up happening with him. Patrick Mahomes coming in at a 2.33, tied with Justin Herbert. That's right, Justin Herbert and Patrick Mahomes, both in 15 games last season, tied in their risk score. Now, when you look at it, obviously Patrick Mahomes had a couple of more games inside the top 6 than what Herbert did, but Herbert had 3 more games inside the top 12 and 1 less outside of it. So Justin Herbert, his rookie season, and now we're going into year 2 with a much better offense, in my opinion, an improved offensive line. I don't know how Justin Herbert doesn't return value this year. Josh Allen at a 2.37. kind of perplexed by this one. I thought he would end up being a lot higher. Now, 2.37 is nothing to scoff at, right? I mean, but the problem is there was a few performances where he was just outside that top 12. I mean, he had 8 inside the top 6. That was tied with Aaron Rodgers for the most. But there was a few performances where he finished just outside the top 12. If we could have moved 2-3 performances from 7 over to 1, and then now we've got 3 there, instead of 7 over here, this score goes down, this risk score goes down, and now Josh Allen probably finishes up closer to Deshaun Watson. So again, something to keep in mind this year too with Josh Allen. Just a few games were super close to finishing inside the top 12, just didn't quite do it. If he turns that around and he brings in some of those games this year and moves them into top 12 performances, we're golden. Lamar Jackson, his rushing ability obviously helps him out a little bit. Russell Wilson threw it a lot last year. Tom Brady, I would expect to take a little bit of a step forward this year and watch that 2.56 go down a little bit. Obviously, with the news that he was hurt, torn MCL last year, got that fixed up, ready to go. Second year on the offense, now has worked with everybody. The big one to note here is Kirk Cousins, who finished just behind Tom Brady and in front of Ryan Tannehill, Matt Ryan, Matthew Stafford, Ben Roethlisberger, guys that really at this point are kind of being favored ahead of him. I mean, he's got an 11.07 ADP right now, and he didn't blow you away with top 6 performances, but he did have 6 games inside the top 12. He really limited the amount of games in which he finished outside the top 12 last year. The upside isn't really going to be there for him because they're going to run the football so much. But the defense will be okay, but it won't be as good as what we've seen in Minnesota recently. And, I mean, you've got Justin Jefferson for an entire year. I mean, you had him for an entire year last year, right? But it wasn't, quote-unquote, an entire year because it wasn't until a few games into the season that he got going. Now you've got him all the way. Hopefully you can get Irv Smith Jr. going as well. And now Kirk Cousins is looking like one of the safest quarterbacks at his value. I mean, 11.07. I mean, that's a really good value for a guy that in 2 QB Superflex leagues, I'm all day taking as my quarterback too. For those of you that want to wait in 1 quarterback leagues and you're not touching quarterbacks until late, Kirk Cousins is one of those guys where that's kind of like that last straw at that point where I can get a guy that's going to have that potential. But you can draft Kirk Cousins knowing that, hey, I'm not going to get a ton of top 6 performances, but I can get a lot of top 12 performances. Ryan Tannehill at 2.75. That score is going to go down a little bit this year. Julio Jones adding in is just going to make things even better for this offense. Ryan Tannehill is going to end up finishing a lot higher. Matt Ryan, Carson Wentz, Ben Roethlisberger, all finishing above Matthew Stafford. Again, just a lot last season, either playing hurt or having injuries around him. Bad offensive line really pushed him down. That is completely different. Joe Burrow, I did mention it a few minutes ago where Joe Burrow had some performances that were really, really close to being top 12, but there were some weeks where there was just some guys around him that just had huge weeks, and it just kind of pushed him out a little bit. Or there was a couple of weeks where he had a good week, but maybe he threw an interception or two or something like that. That ended up hurting. Tua is a guy that we could see. And, I mean, the biggest thing to note here is Daniel Jones, right? I mean, Daniel Jones is kind of in the same situation that, we saw with Baker Mayfield a couple of years ago. Rookie season. And Daniel Jones is going into year 3, obviously. But, Baker Mayfield has like a rookie season. It's good, not great. I mean, he does set the touchdown record for rookies. And we all were like, ooh, hyped. Like, let's go, baby. Huge season incoming. And then obviously we got let down. Are we getting set up for the same, the same type of letdown with Daniel Jones? Because my concern with Daniel Jones is that 12 outside of the top 12. Only 2 performances last year inside the top 12. And yeah, we're adding like Kenny Galladay, right? We've got Kadarius Toney that was added through the draft. Sterling Shepard, can he be healthy? Darius Slayton, Evan Ingram, Saquon Barkley's back. Offensive line improved a little bit. So everything seems to be there for Daniel Jones, but it's all on Daniel Jones. We can't do anything else to help him at this point. If it doesn't happen this year, I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, it's probably not going to happen. I'm rooting for him. I think he could potentially be a decent quarterback, but there's still concerns about him that are the same concerns when he was coming out. Does he really have that X factor? Does he really have the tools to become a star in this league at the quarterback position? So right now, for guys that are inside the top 12 that have numbers from last year, or top 24, Daniel Jones is our riskiest quarterback with Tua, Joe Burrow, Baker Mayfield, Matthew Stafford, Ben Roethlisberger, Carson Wentz, Matt Ryan coming right before him. Joe Burrow, I do see this score being a little bit better. Obviously, year number 2, added Jamar Chase. Just the offensive line is going to have to keep him healthy. That's the big thing. Offensive line has got to keep him healthy. And if they do that, ladies and gentlemen, we're rock solid. But there you have it. There you have it, guys. My top 24 ADP, based on the ADP, top 24, and what their risk score is right now. Hopefully you all are enjoying these videos. We've taken to the content to a whole nother level this season, and we're doing some deep diving, some things that honestly I don't see anybody else doing. So hopefully you all enjoy the content. Make sure if you're new here to the Fantasy Headliners, of course, hit that subscribe button, stick around, become a member of Headliner Nation today. Leave a comment down below. Let me know, out of all the information we saw here, are there some guys that you're staying away from now? Are there some guys that you're targeting now? And then also make sure you hit the like button. Give the thumbs up on this video down below. Hit it and become a member of Patreon today. Sign up, MVP tier, $20 a month, and you're going to get a ton of stuff with it. You don't want to miss out. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to get out of here. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll catch you on the next episode of the Fantasy Headliners.